A very good evening to you wherever you are tuned in to the nation's number one talk station, 99.3 Nigeria Info. It is 16 minutes gone past the 6 o'clock hour. And at this time of the day, every Monday evening, we bring you what we call the Newsroom. The Newsroom is a program where we take a critical look at some of the big stories that have made the rounds in the course of the last 7 days. Ufuoma Egbamuno is my name, and on today's show, one of our biggest stories from last week we will focus on in the second half of the show. It, of course, had to do with the trending video of a school teacher caught on camera physically abusing a 3-year-old. Well, that got a lot of Nigerians talking, and of course, it's a story we covered extensively right here on Nigeria Info. But before we do that, let's take a critical look at a rundown of some of the stories from last week. The NCDC dismissed the threat of the human metapneumovirus in the country. We also saw the Lagos State Governor sign the 2025 appropriation bill into law. And of course, some good news. We saw 20 Nigerian words and expressions make it into the Oxford English Dictionary, including words like Jakba, Agberu, Eba, 419, and so on. We also, of course, reported via our interview from last week that about $100 million was spent in Lagos during the dirty December. And of course, I did mention this arrest of a teacher who physically abused a 3-year-old. The Lagos State Domestic and Sexual Violence Agency did talk a lot about it. We also had the executive director on one of our shows last week, which will form the basis of our conversation later on. And then the president assured Nigerians that there will be boost in food production and local manufacturing. He also assured Ghanaian president of Nigeria's support. That's after he traveled to Germany for the inauguration of their new president. This week, we would have the Nigerian Communications Commission tell us more about the proposed tariff in the telecom sector. That's after 2 or 3 weeks ago, they told us there will be nothing of sort. Sometimes you just wonder at all of this, but I would not say more about it. And of course, the defense headquarters confirmed the death of 6 soldiers after a raid by the Islamic State and Boko Haram groups. Those were some of the stories that made the rounds. Of course, we saw the Chinese foreign minister come to Nigeria, and the president asking, for a review of the swap currency exchange to ensure that Nigeria gets more. But this week, Lagos, the first part of the show, I would like to have a conversation with you guys. And I would love to also hear your thoughts. There are a few things I picked up from last week, that I think we should talk about, and I would love to also hear what you guys have to say. Quickly, let me run through some of them. One of them, of course, just happened in the early hours of today. We now have a new Speaker of the House of Assembly right here in Lagos, because Mudashiru Obasa was impeached earlier today. I'm not asking you to talk about this, to be honest, because of course we would definitely get more info and more updates on this as we build, towards the political scene for 2027. Because make no mistake, today's impeachment has everything or almost everything to do with 2027. But that's not the issue. Let's talk about, the fact that the Oyo State government has decided to take legal action against some persons. They filed an 8-count charge of murder, manslaughter, and criminal negligence against the former wife of the Oni of Ife, Naomi Shilekunola. Of course, the proprietor of an Ibadan-based radio station, Uriyomi Hamzat, and the principal of the school where that event took place, which led to, of course, that stampede and persons die. On one hand, you would say, okay, great move by the state government. If these individuals had questions to answer following the investigations, these things should be done. Prosecute whoever is guilty. But then again, some might be quick to ask, why does it look like we have selective judgments sometimes in Nigeria? One of the bases of a society is when the rule of law is upheld every time, not selectively for some people or selectively in some areas. Because it takes me all the way back to 2014 when we had that stampede at the National Stadium, Abuja. Remember the immigration, employment, whatever that happened. I haven't seen, I'm not sure that the persons responsible have been prosecuted. I'm probably going far. We had a stampede here in Lagos sometime last year. Nigerian customs was selling rice at a reduced price somewhere at Yaba. About 7 persons reportedly died as a result of the stampede. That matter has gone cold. I haven't said or heard anything. While we want to bring justice against people who have allegedly been at fault for the stampede in Ibadan, I would like to see the same scenario play out for the same stampede a few weeks later in Abuja. We also had another stampede somewhere in Anambra State, I think Okija. My memory serves me right. It feels like all these incidents have gone cold. Just the same way the immigration stampede from 2014 went cold, and the stampede at Yaba where people died. And customs just, sent out a press statement and said, oh, we're stopping this. It's gone cold. It doesn't make any single sense if we're being honest. I'll move on quickly and I'll talk about the fact that in some major roads in Lagos, I do know that the state government, has tried as much as possible to ensure places are lit up. But there are still some major roads in Lagos where you don't have street lights. Or you have traffic lights and the traffic lights are faulty. One, maybe the green light is not showing when it's supposed to show. So people who are probably driving there for the very first time don't have an idea that they're supposed to go or not. And a classic example, if you drive along the Ligalia Yorinde road, the junction where you have the traffic light, some of those lights are not working. So this is me, calling on the Lagos state government or whoever is supposed to be in charge of that. And I'm pretty certain that there are areas too where these things are faulty. So Lagos, those are the kind of things I would love to hear from you when I open up the phone lines. But the very popular Ahmadu Bello Way, which is supposedly a federal road, I think, the mere fact that you drive on that road at night, and I'm talking Ahmadu Bello Way on Victoria Island, just in case you were wondering, how on earth is the gateway, so to speak, the link between one of the links between the mainland and getting into the island, does not have street lights? And then by the time you drive and get into Adetokunbo Ademola Road, the streets are lit up. It looks totally different from that long stretch on Ahmadu Bello Way. Here's me thinking there are quite a number of other roads too. I think the what do you call that expressway now? The Oshodi expressway still has that no light issue. Yeah, that's Oshodi Expressway that leads you all the way to mile 2, or that starts from the Bagada axis all the way down. I know it's a federal road, but here's me thinking, is it possible that the Lagos State government or the transport ministry can work out a situation where those roads are lit up and maybe get reimbursements from the federal government? I think I know also, if my memory serves me right, that there was a time the federal government stopped, I think it was last year or 2 years ago, this whole issue of fixing roads and then getting the monies from the federal government. I think they stopped it. But at this point, I'm talking about the lightning, not just, you're not fixing the roads. It's kind of absurd that major roads like that, Oshodi Expressway, and the Amadu Bello Way, it's shocking that at night or in the early hours of the morning, those roads do not have street lights. It doesn't help the security situation of the state. And it will be great if we can hear from you guys if you have such roads in your neighborhood or across your area where the street lights are not working. So that at least to a large extent, because trust me, the Lagos State government is listening to the show right now. So they will probably hear. Talking about traffic lights and all of that, myself and Emmanuel went out on Saturday evening. And on our way back, something quite shocking. It's shocking to me because I would think that as an adult or as someone who's a road user, you know that you're not using the road for yourself alone. You have other people. So for those of us who are quite familiar with Victoria Island, there's this one of these inner streets that is just opposite. I think it's just opposite the Total. What's it called? Company building, very close to Eco Hotel, very close to the Eco Hotel roundabout. What's the name of that street again? Oyin Jolayemi Street. It's a one way. If you walk around that axis or you're familiar with the road, it's one way. So the road it's quite narrow. We were coming back and from the mainland, and we decided to take that way to come out of the Adetokunbo Ademola axis. That's the Eco Hotel side. Some driver was in front of us, 2 cars ahead. And guess what the driver was doing? He was literally buying or pricing some goods that people on the edge of the road were selling. And the light had turned from red to green, meaning people were supposed to go. And this man did not care that he was at the front of the queue, that there were cars behind him. Didn't care. Just continued his business that he was doing. And the driver right in front of him was, hitting his horns. Beep, 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 beep. The man didn't bother. Like I told Emmanuel and I think my other colleague, Honora, because it was the 3 of us coming back that evening. I wasn't the one driving. Emmanuel was actually driving. If I was the one driving, I would have found a way, because eventually, when the horning kept on going, he eventually went out of the, moved away out of the road and allowed us pass. Me, I would not have passed. I would have gone in front of him and parked. And I would have come out of the car and I would have given him a piece of my mind. That's what I would have done. Because I couldn't understand for the life of me how a grown man, an adult, a road user, just decided that, pricing or whatever it is I was doing, my business was more important to me on a road where other people were. And you blocked everybody's path just because you were doing your business. And I think it's the hallmark of the lack of orderliness that some of us exhibit. We can go on and shout and talk about how our leaders are not good enough, they're not doing this. And yes, we do sometimes have, our politicians and people in government who are Not great, for want of a better expression. But how about us, the followers? Why on earth would you run red lights? Red light means stop. Why would you run across the road? And I see a lot of road users in Lagos doing exactly the same thing. God forbid an accident happens because you're running red light. What happens? You run away, right? When you've ended up either causing injury or even to the point of death. Why would you are in the queue, front. The light says green, move. People are behind you. But no. You're trying to buy something on the road, on a narrow road that only one car can pass at a particular time. And you couldn't give two spaghettis about every other road user. But the same person would open his or her mouth and insult the president or insult the governor when they do something that they don't like. I can't understand it for the life of me. I can't. And on today's show, I'm asking you, think about it. Everyone who's tuned into the broadcast this evening, think about it. The actions that you perform on the road or in your house or your compound, does it make you a better person? If somebody would do that to you, would you like it? Why would you be in the bus, eat your biscuits or drink your pure water, and the next thing, boom, you're throwing it outside from the window? Why? Which also brings me to the menace, because that's what I call it, the menace of these guys who do delivery using bikes and bicycles. I don't know if I'm the only one, but the rate at which these guys come at my blind side, like I literally would not see them until I just hear them pass, or they just pass my side or pass the other way, and that's when I'm seeing them. I don't know. I'm holding my hands up and I'm asking, am I the only one who thinks that these delivery guys, especially on the island here, because I drive mostly on the island, are you experiencing the same thing? Because sometimes the speed at which they come, the thought that always pops up in my head is, what if I just, shifted or turned my steering that way for a split second? We'll start answering questions, or I'll eventually injure someone, or God forbid it becomes death and I'll have to answer for manslaughter. And I was talking to a few colleagues about it, and someone said, if you make mistake, jam them, or you don't buy trouble. Because before 2-3 minutes, you will see a legion of these guys gathering. I don't know if I'm the only one, experiencing this. But I'll move on, because I have 2 more things to talk about before we open the phone lines. Over the weekend, I think the Okoyas, the great philanthropist who celebrated his birthday, I think over that same weekend, his children or his grandchildren were trending for the wrong reasons. The same reason that had, what's the name of this Lagos socialite, go to jail for 6 months. Bobrisky, and also Cubana Chief Priest. No, he didn't go to prison, but did he go to prison? Can't remember. I can't remember the story again. But you know what I'm talking about. Okay, in case you don't know, they were taken to court for mismanaging the naira. Because it's a criminal offense to be spraying it and tampering on it and all of that. Obi Cubana, Bobrisky, over the last 12 months have had to suffer that same fate. Well, that's another thing again that happened over the weekend. And the point I really want to make from it is that I saw that the EFCC invited the children for questioning. And somebody said something on Twitter that I thought was very valid. It feels like going back again to the selective question of selective justice I mentioned at the start of the show. Is it a question of some people will be raided and some people will be sent invites? Because to a large extent, we've seen the EFCC raid hostels, people's houses, break doors, even as much as a former governor of a state. Remember the incident with Rochas Okorocha some years ago? But some people will get invites, come to our office. I don't know. It's just a question. It's just me throwing that out. And finally, I saw a tweet from a comedian who is actually was given an appointment last year by the Ondo State governor. And I'm talking Sheyi Law, the popular comedian. Put out a tweet and, said something about the Lagos State governor not recognizing him or acting like he did not see him or he does not see him at events, but that the Lagos State governor is quick to want to be friends with, one of his fiercest critics, the comedian Macaroni. And if you go under that thread, the responses from most Nigerians, I think were apt. The one thing as a human being you would learn is that people in government, and just in case you don't know, I'm telling you now, people in government or politicians respect, and I'm choosing my words carefully, respect people who are in opposition to them, who are very, very forthright, or who are not easily bought over, so to speak. They respect them. They might not tell you publicly, but they do. And of course, the governor of Lagos State has repeatedly said, he is the governor. He will always, for as long as he's the governor, he's not just governor for people that like him. He's also governor to people who are his critics. And he must listen, and to a large extent, I give him credit for that. To a large extent, he must listen to everybody. He will not take everybody's advice, obviously, but he will listen to everybody, and he tries to give everybody a listening ear. And I can tell you without any iota of doubt that for persons like Macaroni, the comedian who has constantly over the years criticized some of the ills in government from the federal and the state level, they have more respect. Politicians will have more respect for that kind of a person who sticks to his principle, as opposed to people who all they just do is lap up and support whatever you do, whether you're wrong or you're right, or just become eat outs. Let me just use that as an example. And that's the much I will say on that, because I'll quickly want to get to the phone lines. I've talked about a lot of things. And it will be great if Lagos, we can hear from you. 0201 277 0993 and 0201 465 7190. Send us a message on WhatsApp 080-9597-5805. Please keep your comments very short, 30 seconds, and we can move on. Hello, good evening, welcome to the newsroom. Emmanuel's Village people. Have actually come this evening. Hello, good evening, welcome to the newsroom.
Hello, Ufoma, is Romeo calling from Isolo.
Welcome, Romeo.
Well, as you said, Ufoma, it's not easy. There is selective justice in Nigeria, and we see it every day. Then it's quite unfortunate you are not the one driving. How would have loved if they recorded Ufoma put on a motor. Hey, Ipuala, you leave your brains at home. It would have made a good voice note. But seriously, Ufoma, all these things, when Mark Ride and O-Ride were operating, it wasn't like this. The people that were orderly, we chased them away, and we now brought in these people. I don't understand the kind of country. It's just as Marianne said, if they explain Nigeria to you,
will not understand.
They didn't explain it well.
All right, thank you very much for. So the crazy thing about me is that I don't get angry easily, but if I vex, okay, make I just leave her like that. 0201 2770 993 0201 465 719. So you can also tweet at us at Nigeria Info FM. At Nigeria Info FM. That is the Twitter handle with which you can reach us. Let me read this WhatsApp message. Somebody said I'm not picking their calls. Okay, no, sorry. It's probably network. Network has been. I thought it was only me because, to be honest, the network has been quite. The telecom network has not been great over the last 2 weeks or thereabout. Is it just me, Onwoka?
It's not just you. Maybe they are waiting for the time where they will increase it to 100%.
You remember that? No, we're laughing now, but it's probably not a laughing matter. Remember that we did report that news 2 weeks ago. One of the association members, who we spoke to, said something about there could be load shedding, we could have network issues, because if they don't increase the tariff, it's not going to work well. So who knows? Maybe that's exactly what is happening.
So they are using this one as a
test run.
Test run, emotional blackmail. That see what we are passing through. It's 2025. See what's going on. We need to increase this.
Okay, let me read this message on WhatsApp. This person is saying this issue of traffic lights, the government really needs to work on it, and I totally agree. Like I did say, some of them are probably the bulbs, in the traffic light instrument. Maybe they're probably dead or they need replacement, something like that. Because I do know that on one of the axes, at least I'm talking about the Ligali Ayorinde road now, it doesn't show when it's green. It shows when it's red, but it doesn't show when it's green. Because some people who are quite familiar with the road already know when it's gone to green, but if you're driving on that road for the very first time and you get to that junction, you might be confused, because you don't know that it's gone to green and you're supposed to move. But at the same time, let's also talk about the fact that some of us road users, we will see that it has turned red, but we will still drive even when it's turned red. Almost the reason I brought up this topic is because somebody almost hit me yesterday on that junction because the person was driving when his own side of the traffic light had already shown red. Anyway, I'll get back to your messages in a bit, but it's my cue also to move on to the second segment of the show. Remember, I told you that we will be discussing the issue of alleged physical abuse, which dominated the news last week. Well, the Lagos State government has strongly condemned the abuse of children in the state in the guise of correcting them. Lagos State Domestic and Sexual Violence Agency says beating a child and inflicting injury will never be accepted as a form of correction by the government. And this is according to the Executive Secretary of the agency, Titilola Vivo Adeniyi. She described the act of parents, caregivers, teachers, and guardians physically punishing their children as a lazy form of correction. Well, Titilola Vivo Adeniyi was on Nigeria Info's Hard Facts with Marianne Okon sometime last week. Take a listen to excerpts from that interview.
So the research agendas themselves have to be reshaped. What determines what projects doctoral students do? So the research agendas themselves have to be reshaped.
Okay, looks like we're having a bit of mix-up with that sound, but my producer Emmanuel Onwoka is trying to rectify that as quick as possible. However, she also emphasized that the government has strengthened its child protection laws to safeguard children in Lagos from harm. She announced that the state government, through the agency, has also created strong structures in school recruitment to ensure that only credible and emotionally intelligent teachers are recruited into schools in the state. You would think that to a large extent that should be the norm, right? Yeah, because you have to have the patience to be able to deal with children. And I'm speaking as someone who taught in schools for a while, for at least for years. Before I gained admission into the university, I did teach between 1999 and 2004. Yeah. If I finally gained admission after so many years of trying. That story for another day. But speaking as an experienced teacher, even though I didn't go through the professional training, I know that you have to be very patient for you to be able to deal with children, especially in the younger classes. Classes like primary 1, do they even still call it primary 1 again? I think I hear it's basic 1, and all of that, or even the nursery segment. If you're not patient, if you do not have the emotional intelligence, it might be difficult for you to be able to handle the excesses of these children. But let me go back again. Let's go back again to that interview. Looks like my producer has been able to sort it out, and so we can take a listen to it in the next 5 seconds. But let's also let you know that she says, I'm talking about the executive secretary of the Lagos State Domestic and Sexual Violence Agency. She says, and I totally agree with her, that for us parents, caregivers, teachers, or anybody who is taking care of children, if we're going to go through this form of physically punishing or abusing them, it's just a lazy way of correcting these children. Take a listen.
Section 201 of the Criminal Law of Lagos State talks about correction of children.
Okay.
We're not oblivious of our culture and the fact that this is Africa. Yes. So yeah, we know that you should be able to correct a child. But notice I did not say punish a child. Correction, discipline. And you must correct a child, but you can't say you're correcting a child by inflicting grievous bodily harm on the child. Whatever correction you do must be reasonable as provided for by the law. Mm-hmm. And you must take into cognizance several factors such as the age, the physical being, and the mental state of mind. The child must be able to appreciate why he or she is being corrected. So look at this particular situation. That boy is 3 years old. So there's no way you can say, to be honest, I don't even think anybody should receive that kind of physical abuse.
That's, of course, Titilayo Vivo Adeniyi giving her thoughts. She is Executive Secretary of the Lagos State Domestic and Sexual Violence. She also says the state government has launched a comprehensive enlightenment campaign to educate parents on more effective and nurturing ways to raise their children. According to her, many parents may not know better due to their own upbringing in similar traumatic environments.
I can speak very, very comfortably about what Lagos State government is doing, because we've been on this since 2014. And when the state government passed that executive order on safeguarding and child protection, it became mandatory for all child-centered institutions to adopt a policy. And part of the provisions of that policy speaks to safer recruitment procedures. So as you rightly said, the kind of teachers that we're recruiting, what's their background? Do they have criminal backgrounds, criminal records? Do they have any issues working with children in the past?
Mental illness is also a schizophrenia.
Yes, these issues will come to the fore during recruitment. And I know of a fact that it's part of the state government's recruitment procedures. In fact, part of the onboarding is the new recruits have to take safeguarding and child protection courses, and they have to sign on to the policy so that you won't say, oh, I did not know. right? So aside from enforcing, we have a duty as government to enlighten. You're coming on board as a teacher in Lagos State. These are the rules. Aside from normal, your classroom teaching work, you must adhere to safeguarding and child protection policies. And I do believe that that's the way to go. Again, parents, we have to assist parents. It's not enough for us to say, you must do this. Some parents don't. Again, we're a product of our socialization. It's the way we were brought up. Imagine a woman that was brought up, if she went out of line, her mother would put the knife on the fire. Cuts her hand. Of course, she has grown up in that environment where its violence has been normalized, right? So she takes that into adulthood. She now has children. The children are acting up. It's only going to be natural for her to explore that means. Do you understand? Because this is her understanding of how to raise a child. And the truth is, you cannot give what you don't have, right? So as we are enforcing, as we are embarking on enforcement, we also have a duty to enlighten. Just recently, we launched our course for parents. It's an online course for parents that are digitally literate. We have several things we do where we go to the communities and have town hall meetings, and we engage with parents about alternative forms of discipline, how to even detect signs, of child abuse. How do you know your child is walking funny, How do you pick up those telltale signs? And more importantly, how do you escalate? And then we have a learning platform, an online platform for safeguarding and child protection. We have something called guidance counselors. We have modules for teachers. We have modules for parents. We have modules for parents. And all our modules are free. We're not requiring you to make any payment. We just want you to give us your time. Take the courses, do the little tests, and receive your certificate. So that website is safeguardingchildren.org.ng.
Safeguardingchildren.org.ng. Let me repeat it again. Safeguardingchildren.org.ng. That's the website you can go to get more information as it concerns this one. Of course, Titilayo Viva Deni, the Executive Secretary of the Lagos State Domestic and Sexual Violence Agency, giving her thought right there. Somebody is sending me a message and saying I should not be angry with Lagos drivers. Some of these drivers are lawless, and Uncle JD he's always been calling for lighting up off the streets in Lagos. I think we should continue this call until all these things are done. This is also a clarion call to the Lagos State government. Some of these roads can be federal roads, but I think we can do this and maybe get the reimbursement, because the security of the state is actually paramount. This segment of the show has been brought to you courtesy of the Lagos State government, and we will be back again next week for another edition of the Newsroom. My name is Ufuoma Egbamuno. Have yourselves a wonderful evening. Femi and the gang will be here in about 6 minutes time for Courtside. Until I see you again next week, take care.
You are listening to your number one station for talk.
99.3 Nigeria Info.
99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk. 99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.